I know the world seems like it's going crazy, but are these just the growing pains of a more loving world to be? Hey guys, it's John sitting here in my living room on a beautiful sunny day outside in the mid 70s. I was just out driving around in my Jeep having a fantastic time. And I wanted to hop on and talk about, the world's going crazy right now. You've got the war in Ukraine, you've got the war in the Middle East, you've got all this turmoil and struggle going on, and people are getting so concerned and so focused on how terrible things are becoming. But the reality of it is we are changing into a new world, a more loving world. In schools, we were going under desks and standing in the hallways in case of bomb attacks or something. We were having training drills to be afraid of the Russian threat. And what did Ukraine prove? What did the war in Ukraine prove? Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, tried to take over a smaller country, tried to be the bully on the block. And what did he find out? He found out that he wasn't as powerful as he thought, and that his use of fear in his own government literally diminished the power he had. His fear-based doctrines were literally a mask that he was wearing. And Ukraine comes in and just these people who are just defending their homes literally overthrew the empire, really. That's what's kind of happening. Or the fight's still going on, I get it. But if just look at the news, this tiny little country hit Moscow. It was able to get and take out all of these sites of where all these missiles were being built, being sent into them. It was able to go in and blow up the airplanes that were dropping missiles on their country. What's been really interesting to watch is that Russia has been slowly diminishing in power because of the fact that everyone now sees that they are a facade. And when I was doing my USO shows, I was over in we did this, what they call the stands tour, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Afghanistan. And when I was in Uzbekistan, we were performing on a base that was a former Soviet base. And what was really interesting was they had these bunkers where they were storing equipment, and they had these doors that were 8 feet thick. And everyone was like, oh, wow, look how thick those doors are. But when you walked over and you looked at the doors up close, the doors were made of plywood. They were made to look like super thick doors, so satellite imagery would see super thick doors thinking there's something in that bunker, right? It was all facade. The whole strength of Russia was a facade, right? Now we go over to the Middle East. We have people using fear tactics on all sides, attacking each other. One side suppresses the other side rebels against the suppression, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And the whole time this is happening, Iran is saying, we're going to blow up that country and blow up that stuff. And what do we find out? We find out real quickly that even that was a facade. That was a facade. They were just using fear tactics, as is Israel, as is the terrorists. And I say terrorists. Please don't think in any way, shape, or form I'm saying that's a Muslim, because to be a terrorist means you can't be a Muslim, because you're subjugated to God, you're subjugated to peace. Islam means subjugation to peace. So to be a true Muslim, you can't be a terrorist, because the second you stop loving one another, then you literally are losing the basic tenets of Islam. Muhammad said, "He who knows not kindness has no faith." This concept of terrorism is not about Islam. It's about terror. It's about fear. It's about eliciting fears and making us feel uneasy, making us fearful. The headlines makes it look like we're spiraling into darkness. But in reality, beneath the surface, there is this just manipulations of fear all the way around us. People are manipulating fear for their own power. Socrates said, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. The chaos that we're seeing right now is the resistance to the change. The people talk about the internet being such a bad thing, but for every person who's saying bad things on the internet, there are more people who are talking to people from all over the world. They're breaking down the borders and barriers. They're becoming friends with people all over the world. I myself do private sessions. I've spoken to Cambodia and Vietnam and Russia, and I've spoken to Iceland and New Zealand and Australia and South America, Costa Rica. I've talked to people all over the world from my house because I have the internet. And my exchanges with these people are always beautiful. They're always loving. They're always caring. People all over the world want the same thing. They want to live in a loving world. They want to live in a caring world. They don't want to have struggles against each other. And it's the ideologies of fear that create those struggles in the world. But to heal a wound, I often tell people, say that you can't actually heal a leg until you take the crutch away. And when you take the crutch away, there's a struggle. There's a problem there. Because there's a fight against this idea that I have to feel the pains of this leg. You pull the Band-Aid off of a wound, but that air that's now touching it is going to make it heal faster. Right now what we're experiencing is the world is drastically shifting. The rigid ideologies of religions and power control and money are all kind of getting nebulous and falling away because people are seeing through the facade. They're seeing through the fake 8-foot door, and they're going, oh, it's not real. The only thing that really matters is that we take care of each other, that we love one another. And what's interesting is, love is quietly spreading everywhere. The big shocking anomalies that we're seeing right now are big shocking anomalies, but they're anomalies. Underneath of that anomaly is this groundswell of power that is unavoidable. It is growing and it is growing and it's growing because people all over the world want a more loving world. People all over the world want this crap to stop. And so, there was a parade in this past week in Washington, D.C. People didn't show up. You look at the videos, people didn't show up. We're not going to support this power play and this fear-based ideology. We're going to go everywhere else in the country and we're going to say, no, we're equal. When we look at the benefits of the current administration, the world has been out of balance in so many ways for so many years. When you talk about the President of the United States, what's the next thing they say? The most powerful man in the world, right? But that's not equality, that's hierarchy. And what's happening right now is all of the other countries are stepping up and they're saying, no, we are going to be an equal share. We are all going to come into this and we are going to work together. And what's happening is the ones who are leaning into the fear-based ideologies are being shown for their plywood door. That plywood door is being shown in all of these despotic countries that are showing how their power is everything and you have to be subjugated to their power. You have to fear them because I am powerful. When the second somebody says, I am powerful, it's usually because they're not. They're trying to bloat themselves up to look like they're more than they are. Russia is finding out in Ukraine that they're not powerful. Not only are they not powerful, but the fear-based push that they've done in their government, even within their government, people are leaving. People are leaving the country. Generals are leaving. And I just saw yesterday on the news that one of the strongest supporters, and specifically one of the most deadly supporters, the Chechen guy, I forget his name, he just moved his family to Dubai, and he's moving to Dubai. He's leaving. So these big power structures in the world are falling right now. The only reason it looks scary is because it's their last desperate act. It's their last desperate act before the world becomes more loving, more caring, more creative.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Coffee Time with John. This channel runs off coffee, so get your coffee and tea at johnsjoe.com.
Right now, everyone's talking about a spiritual awakening or a spiritual awareness that's coming into play. Yesterday, I went on ChatGPT. I said, are we in a spiritual awakening? You know what ChatGPT said? It said, yes, we are. You know what else it said? It said, but it's not doom or gloom and it's not the end of the world. It's a spiritual awakening towards a more loving world. That is what ChatGPT just said. That everything is becoming more loving and more caring, and these anomalies of fear-based ideologies are falling away. Dogmas of churches are falling away. Everything is falling away that is not love. And that's the most beautiful thing about an awakening or an awareness. Now, I don't personally think we're asleep. I just think that we're evolving into a more loving society. And I think it's happening very quickly. And if you just look at our children, you see it. You have your truth. If your truth is that you would love to live in a loving world, then you put that into the experience. The next generations are already doing it. They're rejecting fear-based ideologies. They're not in any way, shape, or form falling into the dogmas of churches. They value authenticity and inclusion. You know, they're not racist, they're not homophobic, they're not any of these things that, you know, people, old guys like me, we grew up in the Wild West. And that sounds crazy, but I was in bar fights. You know, I was literally growing up in a time where, you know, groups of rednecks would go to the gay bars and beat up the gay guys in the parking lot, right? That doesn't happen down there anymore. The world has so dramatically changed. I go to Rehoboth Beach and I go see my brother's band play. Oftentimes, I'm watching his band play in a gay bar. Guess what? I've never been fondled or touched or anything else. People are people, and they just love, and they're in that personal space of being themselves, being their authentic self. When you are being totally authentic, you can exhale because you don't have to fear. And the world is becoming more fearless. And the fearful things that are happening right now are a bunch of bullies reacting and trying to create more fear so they have more power. The less power we give them by not succumbing to the fear, the more diminished they become, the more their plywood doors start to show. So why does the hate and the fear in the world seem to be louder? It gets better press. And what's interesting about that, it's an anomaly. You know, I just got back from the grocery store. As I parked the Jeep, the radio was playing music, and suddenly I hear, there's an accident on blah, 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 blah. Right, that was an anomaly. This accident happened. Be careful with your traffic out there, people. It's crazy out there. Da, 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 da. Every other car in the world made it to their destination, no problem, right? It literally is the anomalies, these fear-based things that are happening are anomalies. The readjustment, you know, it's said that Iran's going to try to hit Jerusalem. Would that be the end of the world, or would that be the end of a holy site that has been a place of division forever, so for thousands of years? You know, would it wipe out some of the dogmas? You know, to rebuild it, would they have to come together to rebuild? You know, when you look at the world, you know, many people believe that we need to look into alternative sources of energy. I am one of them. I think we should be leaning into all the sources of energy. Russia invades Ukraine. Europe stops accepting oil from Russia. Europe starts to lean into greener technologies. Electric cars go up like crazy all over the world. The world begins to shift into cleaner energies. What's that going to do for the world? It's going to make the world cleaner. You know, COVID hit, and we had that big struggle. People stopped using all the cars, and there wasn't hardly anything on the road, and the world started to clean itself up instantly. The second we stopped putting junk into the world started to clean itself up instantly. That's what's happening right now. The junk is starting to come up and bubble up. The world is starting to shift into saying, you know, I see through your plywood door. The thing you have to realize is the louder they scream, the more truth is coming up. The concept of this is interesting because, you know, when this groundswell of beauty and love is coming into the world, they start, no! They're screaming because they've lost. When the debate is lost, slander becomes the loser. The slander is the screaming, the yelling, the attacking, the fighting, all that struggle. Change is nothing to fear because no great outcome has ever happened without change. And the ones who are fearful during the time of change are the ones who are creating the turmoils in the world. But there's more of us than there are of them. And in this world, we have the ability to say, cut it out. You can either get with love or you're going to go down in bad ways because that's what you're creating into your experience. Fear will always fail. Perfect love drives out fear. If we stay loving and we just stay focused on the loving aspects of loving the Palestinian people who had nothing to do with Hamas, what about those beautiful people who are trying to live their lives in basically an open air prison? They can't get out, they can't do things because it's kind of manipulated and controlled, right? But that manipulation and control is all about power. Israel, they have those people have a right to live as well without being attacked. But when you start to have one fear-based thing happen, another fear-based things happen, and then the struggle, there's not one side that's not guilty. All sides of the conflicts in the world have fear. They're using fear and fear tactics, and division and hate and quite honestly, violence to create their control on power. But they will always lose control of power because the people of the world will always push against the negative and will always lean into the positive. And the positive groundswell of love that's coming up right now is becoming more and more obvious. In all of this that's going on, you are not insignificant. You can't save the world, but you can make your part of the world so bright that you affect the people around you enough so that they start becoming more loving themselves. Be the love in the world. Put that expression of a more loving essence into the world. And when fearful things happen, give your opposition. But don't fight it. Don't argue against it because anti-war is still focused on war. Focus on love. That's what Mother Teresa said. She wouldn't go to the anti-war rally. Have a pro-peace rally, she'll come. We stay focused on the peace, and the fearful guys and the fearful people of the world who are screaming and hollering and yelling and attacking each other, eventually they fall away because even in Iran, I remember when I was in the 70s, women wore pants, women drove cars, and the fear-based suppression got them out of pants and into dresses and into cover, and they stopped driving cars. Right? Those fear-based ideologies that are based in inequality are going away because there is no hierarchy. And people will often swing to the opposite side, and they'll go, well, women are more powerful than men or back, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. None of those things matter because it's not about one bit more powerful, one less powerful. That's the fear-based dogmas and anomalies that are creating turmoil in the world. Everyone's equal. There is no hierarchy. There's not one person who is more powerful than another. Someone just the other day said that Mary Magdalene was the most powerful disciple. That goes completely against Jeshua's teachings. Everyone's equal. There is no more powerful or less powerful. Those are fear-based ideologies. Every loving thought, every kind action, every gesture of compassion that you deliver in the world affects the whole because it's a ripple effect. When they measure waves of energy, they flow. They keep going. They move out from us. And when you look at this isn't about waiting for a utopia to magically happen. It's about being the utopia in the now, being the hope, the joy, the compassion, the love, so that it can grow. And it's happening. It's happening all over the world. So are we becoming a more loving world? I absolutely 100% say yes. Absolutely 100%. And I believe this not because I'm seeing it on the news or I'm seeing it in every awakened heart that I talk to. You people who watch these videos and you give me such beautiful comments of compassion. Oh my God, I believe this. Oh, this feels good. I love that you keep it simple, John. I love that you always bring it back to love, John. I get a lot of comments like that. These are the people in the world that are the groundswell beneath us. And it is growing. We are becoming the tsunami of love that washes the world clean of fear. Perfect love drives out fear. And that's what's happening in the world. And it's for each one of us to be the proof of it. It's for each one of us to say, I am a part of the new loving world. I am the compassion, the love, and the kindness that the world truly is based in. And all of these fear-based ideologies and all these power plays for money or just simply power, those are just fear-based ideologies, and there's not one person more or less powerful than anybody else. Just look at what's going on in the world right now. We've looked at Ukraine. We've looked at the Middle East. Look what's happening with the P. Diddy trials. That control of fear and power is being exposed. People who are marketing and profiting from fear are being exposed for their plywood doors. And what happens next is they fall away. They become a blip in the history of the world. They become an anomaly that we all forget about over time, because eventually we're creating a world that's going to be so loving, so caring, so inclusive, that in the end, those hateful, harmful people will be remembered as, look what nasty crap they did. Look at the horrible things that they did. How unloving of them. Understand, when I traveled the world, I went to 30 countries, and I asked them, what's the most important thing to you? And the most important thing was not power, it was not money, it was not their job, it was their family. And what is the family? The family is the direct representation of love in the world. It is how love is represented, it is how love is treated. That is what the family is in the physical world. And everybody in every country I went to, that was their answer. Family. There are more of us than there are of these fearful, fear-based, power-hungry, money-hungry people who are just trying to create their own ideologies on everyone else and subjugate everyone else to be right. It's all gone away. The Pew polls recently said that religion itself is falling away. People are just letting it go. But what happens when they let it go? All the fear-based ideologies of that go away too. All the fear-based ideologies, all the fear-based teachings of religion goes away too. What's left? Wanting to live in a good world. Wanting to live in a loving world. And that's my point of this, is you can be the loving world now, and you can understand that all of this fear-based junk that's happening right now, all of this wars and vitriol and hateful things that are happening, there is a groundswell of love that's going to wash it away. And you can be a part of it just right where you are. Be the love where you are, and the love will come and surround your part of the world. And then, like that old shampoo commercial, and they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on. Love becomes exponential. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.